amazing viewers. Thank you so much for joining me on my program once again. I appreciate you wherever you are connecting from. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please kindly subscribe to my channel. Click the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you so much and remain blessed.
Ambassador, there are those who have suggested over time, and this has been almost like a campaign, that there's a need to restructure the United Nations. There's a need to restructure the administrative system of the United Nations. The advocates of these seem to believe that if that happens, then we may have a more functional United Nations. Is it as simple as that?
Well, again, I appreciate both Professor Okonkwo and the gentleman who spoke.
Professor Olagunju, yes.
Yes, Professor Olagunju. They've approached this thing from different perspectives, but they're all leading to the same thing. And my colleague here,
Dr. Mali,
here, exactly, Tomado, again captured it in that lack of enforcement mechanism. Professor Olagunju was talking about conflict. Conflict is not the same, it's not coterminous with war. In every human organization, there must be conflict. So that you can control and manage. But the failure of diplomacy, which probably is what we are calling the failure of leadership, because I don't know if there's anybody appointed world leader who would say, I am the captain of the world, what I say happens. Probably that's the reason they also thought of Security Council with 15 members. 5 with veto power. This veto power thing needs to be re-examined, as he said. But there is something nobody can run away from. In the case he explained about Africa, if France has an issue it wants to execute in Africa, and an African veto country, let's say Nigeria, assuming Nigeria had the veto, and Nigeria vetoed it at the United Nations Security Council, yes, it becomes an illegal thing for France to do. But supposing France decides to go ahead and do it anyway, who is going to stop him? That is the dilemma of this whole thing about world leadership and managing peace and security and stability. That is one. Then the United Nations, we must remember, cannot stop conflicts happening. In fact, it's not its remit. Its remit is violent wars, you know, things that breach the security of the world. That's what it should get involved with. Now, the Treaty of Westphalia, which recognized the existence of nations, is built on what we call national interest. National interest is defined. Is protection, the capacity, the ability, the extent to be able to defend your national interest is the capacity you have the both kinetic, economic, and other powers to do so. If you do not have that, there are those academicians who argue about a moral world. But the fact on the ground, which you see every day, these international meetings and is that, yes, as Professor Okonkwo quoted, you know, the UN Charter talks about the equality of all nations, you know, but you and I know that in reality, in the real life, in the real world out there, yes, some countries are more equal than others. Is there a mechanism to change that in the world? Is there a way to make all countries so powerful that if, for instance, what was happening in Ukraine was between Ukraine and say some other country in former Eastern Europe, listen, it would have been over since. It would have, because the world will now feel emboldened to say, no, this is what, but because, as I noted, superpower, if you want to recognize Russia as that, which it is, because with the alliance you have seen from NATO and the assistance Ukraine has received in the past 3 months, Russia is still standing. That's what this is about. It's a function of power. Until there is that will to say, let us all agree that once the United Nations has passed a judgment. Every nation in the world, big or small, must rally around that decision and implement it. So even if it is one superpower who can challenge the whole world, and there are, there are, it will be at a huge disadvantage. But the lessons of Ukraine show you that even at that, when the United Nations tried to this resolution, many countries took the other side. Many countries decided to abstain, especially African countries. Again, it's a consideration of your national interest and power. Many of them depend on Russia for basic things like energy. Even you could see European countries that are a bit stronger, some are beginning to vacillate because of their total reliance on Russia for its energy needs. Even a powerful country like Germany, even though it is a NATO country and so on, Germany and France are talking of giving Putin something so that he doesn't lose face, so that we can find a handle to stop this matter. So my thinking as a practitioner in diplomacy, especially multilateral diplomacy for 35 years, what I tell people is the theory, the morality is good, it's important, we must uphold them, but always keep your eyes on the power structures of the world. You dismiss it, nothing works.
Yeah. Yes, Dr. Mali. Yes. In addition to what you are going to say, just looking back now, 77 years after, would the world have been different if the UN did not come into existence at the time it did?
Well, I will answer a question before I go to what I want to say. The UN, to be fair, has tried. It's not easy to maintain peace anywhere in the world. Even in our homes, it's very, very difficult to maintain peace. So to that extent, the UN has tried. Like Kenneth said, within its limited resources and time. The most important thing is that a lot needs to be done. The UN is not reforming as quickly as it should. As at the time it was set up 77 years ago, 1945, the circumstances of the world has changed tremendously. Globalization has taken root. Colonialization has been abolished. The world has been reduced to a global village. A lot of issues has come up that needs the world to take a second look. What can we do to fit into the world of the 21st century? How do we reform the United Nations to make it more effective? What I wanted to say before is that as far back as some time ago, scholars like Hans Morgenthau, the father of real politics, and that is what Ambassador has been saying, it's about power game. Most of the conflict you see in Africa, Southeast Asia, they are proxy wars. We are just pawns in the chess game, in the chessboard. Most of the conflict across Africa, you can trace its origin either from one of the superpowers or the other. France is riding roughshod in the whole francophone speaking countries of Africa. Portugal is carrying out its own agenda in other places. The United Kingdom is having sway in some other countries. So most of the conflict in Africa, even if you go to Asia, most of the countries are still attributed to the unequal relationship. Scholars like Walter Rodney, though their scholarship has been said to be outdated, what they said are still there. The periphery-center relationship, the unequal relationship. And this relationship will continue to be equal as long as we depend on these technologies. As long as we depend, we as Africans, I agree, it's a question of leadership domestically, but internationally it's not question of leadership. It's question of power play, relations, power relations between countries. And nobody will sacrifice their national interest unless we protect our national interest. Who are the ones supplying the arms? Who are the manufacturers of these arms? And when you look at it, it is still the people with veto power that are manufacturing the various weapons of mass destruction, and they are arming rebel groups, they are arming insurgent groups, they are arming all kinds of groups, all for their selfish economic interests. So realism is real. The struggle for power within the international system, even the Ukrainian-Russia conflict, it can be situated within power relations. The Russians are trying to keep them away, keep their boundary safe by not allowing NATO to expand to Ukraine. So all they're fighting for is to make sure that the West do not penetrate. The West too is trying to get foothold in that region. So again, you see, it's power play. If you go to Sudan, the crisis in Sudan took a dimension in the Darfur region. Immediately oil was discovered, and oil politics becomes very, very pertinent in most of the conflict. It's either raw materials have been discovered in a particular place. Look at the Congo. Look at all the crises there. That's around mining activities. Even in our own Nigeria, since the discovery of gold in Zamfara has not been the same again. A lot of banditry has come up, a lot of issues. So most of the conflict in the developing countries, you cannot extricate power and influence of the international community from them.
Okay, so that's why I bring in Professor Olagunju. Let's examine very quickly. Let's examine the economic matrix side by side with the power relations has been put forward here by the panelists who are right here in the studio.
Yes, especially Dr. Mali. It was interesting to your power play. I'm just wondering, where is it going? So I'm happy ended in economics. The power play appears to me to be largely based on economics, wealth of nations. The France, Britain, and all the big powers, they are not fighting because they hate each other per se, but because they are looking at the wealth of nations, how much of it they can corner to themselves. And that's very important. And that's why I said that we must focus on equitable international economy. The situation whereby you have an unequal economic relations, where some get more and some get less, where the richest nations in the world potentially is Congo, Nigeria, and all that, they are poor in reality, and their wealth, really, if you look at it, their net wealth flows to the big nations of the world. That is wrong and has to be corrected. Now, the thing is that we cannot just blame the big power brokers. It will be very unfair and wrong. It takes you to time. What are we as local political leaders? What are we doing? That's number one. Number two, what are we as individuals? I talk about the multi-track diplomacy. What are we as individuals? Now, the media is doing it, so what is the academia doing? What is the activists? What are they doing? So we have to look at this at holistic. If a nation, no matter how small it is, if it says stop, it will stop. The exploitation and the oppression will come. It takes collaboration between the leadership of a weak nation and leadership of a more powerful nation to exploit the situation and to have the conflict continue. So we must take responsibility at the three levels I told you about: the global leadership level, the local political leadership level, and the multi-track leadership level. Now, concretely, what must be done? At the local leadership level, our leaders must begin to see that your importance as a nation, as a political leader, is dependent on how people see your people. So if you think that you are a president or whatever you are, and you feel so important, but your people are left behind, there's so much poverty which drives conflict. We must always remember that when the economy is bad, expect conflict. I mean, the index, the global index you shared with us, shows that. But when a country begins to pick up economically, you see that their peace increase. Why? An idle hand is the devil's workshop. So that's where I see the balance. I realize that power play comes in, there are some nations more powerful than the others. But I think that to look at the powerful nations and not look at what the weaker, so-called weaker nations are doing would be wrong. It's a balance, and that's what.
Thank you so much, Professor Olagunju.
Two ends of the rope.
Thank you so much.
What are they doing? But what am I doing to improve and change things? I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Okonkwo. Let's begin to look at solutions now, very quickly. What needs to be done? Nigeria, for instance, is ranked 143 out of the 165 nations that were surveyed in the Peace Index. That although there has been an improvement of, say, about 3 or 4 steps from 2020, yet the 2021 index clearly shows that we are a nation not at peace with ourselves. Now, beginning from the local level to move into the global stage, what do we need to do?
First of all, the first solution that we would have to have in mind is to admit as to the inevitability of conflict. As a matter of fact, after the fall of man in the Garden of Eden, God himself was not interested that the whole world will agree to one thing. And the reason why God was not interested was that if you only need to capture that man who is in charge of the whole world, if the whole world has come under one leadership in order to derail the whole world, that was what happened at the Tower of Babel. So there is no time in the whole world that the whole world will agree on an issue. Take it as given, because that is what will inform your entering into solutions. And like you said, let each and every citizen of the world be the example you want to see. Starting from the individual person. What are you contributing to the peace of the world? Well, artists like us, we are ambassadors of peace. Even by August, they will still give me another United Nations SDG Ambassador of Peace. And part of the things we are trying to do now is to campaign that if we continue to jaw, we will not war. Everything can be sorted out on the table. Article 2, paragraph 3, 4 of the United Nations is very clear. It said every member should refrain from the threat or use of force against the political independence and territorial integrity of any state. And he said every dispute should be resolved by peaceful means in such a manner that international peace, security, and justice are not endangered. Now, the United Nations must live up to the true meaning of its charter. Every nation shall be sovereignly equal to every other nation. And that is graduating the United Nations from the superpower mentality of some members that are placed above the law to democratizing the Security Council by making every vote of the United Nations members to count
and equal.
If within the national sphere, no matter how powerful you are as a human being, your vote is equal to the vote of the poorest person, then we must admit that on the international sphere, for peace to prevail, the vote of Togo must be equal to the vote of United States. Recall that the president of Togo, as he then was, said, whether you are the president of United States or you are the president of Togo, a president is a president.
Ambassador Jacko, will that come to fruition anytime soon? What are your projections?
I'm thoroughly impressed with Dr. Okonkwo's
Thank you, sir.
ideas, but it is good to think that we can have a Togo whose weight in the United Nations is as strong, powerful, and equal as say that of the United States. It sounds so beautiful to me because I come from here. Relative to the United States, Nigeria is a weak country. So coming from here, I would definitely love that. But how do you think an American or a Chinese would want to love that too? That's where that gospel comes in and it becomes a moral. However, at the local level, that's at the national level, because all peace must start from the locality. That is totally indisputable. Now, leadership comes in at the municipal level, that's the national level. If you do not create an environment, if you do not establish structures and institutions that ensure justice, ensure equity in those economic things you are talking about. Who gets what, when, and how? The Prof will know much better about that. Fairness. Once those things are not seen to be the bastion of governance in any society, please expect conflict. And if conflict comes, you do not have that leadership capacity to manage it, like managing the diversity of your country well. You are looking for a violent conflict, in which case you'll be looking for international assistance to come and help you do this and that. And when they come, that's one thing we must understand in this past. When they come, they're not coming because they love you. No. This is an assumption we make here. Oh, the UN will come, America will come. Nobody comes because they love you. They come because they have an interest to protect or to advance.
Dr. O'Malley, yes, 60 seconds.
Solutions are everywhere there. We cannot go it alone as Africans.
Sure.
That is why we have the African Union. As we are criticizing the United Nations, what of our old African Union? What of our own sub-regional bodies like ECOWAS? A lot is going wrong there.
What of even the Commonwealth?
Yes,
that ended the summit.
They have multilateral organizations, and we have to make sure that they run effectively to be able to have a collective voice. If the whole of Africa can aggregate all their interests together and pursue it at the higher United Nations level, Africa will achieve a lot. Secondly, when we talk about solution, the Security Council is just one organ of the United Nations. Look at the International Court of Justice at The Hague. 5 judges are permanently there at every point in time from these countries. So how do you get justice in the Hague when all the 5 permanent members are permanent judges at every point in time at The Hague? So even if you go there, they are still waiting for you at the end. So the reforms should be wholesale.
Yeah.
From the World Health Organization, from the World Trade Organization, to
all the organs of the UN.
The Security Council is just one. That is just the point.
Thank you so much. Well, what I gather from all that you have been saying is very simple. That peace begins in the hearts of men.
Yes.
And it is from there that it can be built into a larger base. And that's the message that we need to send out here. We must begin to build peace in our hearts and take it to the smaller community and then, of course, to the larger society. I want to thank you immensely for finding time to join us on this program today. Ambassador Humphrey Ojako, former permanent representative of Nigeria to the United Nations in Geneva. Thank you so much for honoring us at such a short notice. Dr. Adoyi Matthew O'Malley is an international affairs analyst and he teaches at the Bayes University here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Thank you so much. And of course, Dr. Kenneth Okonkwo is a lawyer and a global affairs analyst. Thank you so much for finding time to join us. And Professor Olajide Olagunju, he joined us virtually from the United States. He's a lawyer, he's an arbitrator, and a professor of conflict resolution and peace building. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Moni.
All right. For you, our viewers out there, we want to thank you for investing your time with us, and we hope that you have gotten the message. Build peace in your hearts, and then, of course, export it to the community. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for your patience to watch from the beginning to the end. I hope you have learned something from the video you have just watched. The video you have just watched is to bring information to your doorstep and for educational purpose. It is not to demonize anybody. Let us watch continuously and see who can be able to make a sense out of every nonsense we are seeing. We must continue. We move. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what they say. They will kill us. We'll kill them. At the end of the day, Biafra is here. Thank you for watching. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please kindly subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell so that you're notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you and remain blessed. Bye-bye. See you again.